Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Just Press Start here at justpressstart.net. And we're happy to have with us, for I believe the third time, Michael Hicks from MichaelArts. He's here to talk about Honor and Vengeance. Oh, wait a minute. No, he's not. He's here to talk about Sententia. Michael, welcome back to the program, first of all.
Hey, thank you. It's good to be back.
And tell us a little bit about the radical departure from your previous games.
Yeah, I guess it is a bit of a shock, right? I mean, I jumped from 3D to 2D, so I guess people are a little confused.
And from sci-fi to
yeah, like a cartoony, I guess.
Like a cartoon, yeah. So
yeah, it's been a big shocker. I mean, a lot has changed since we last talked. I guess we talked the last August, so it's been almost a year, right?
Yeah, it's when Honor and Vengeance 2 came out. So
yeah, it was just when that came out. Wow, so it's been a lot has changed since then. I've been busy with school and trying to do some development stuff. I guess I should explain Honor and Vengeance 3. I originally started working on it last year, and I did some work on the soundtrack, and that kind of changed the entire vibe of the game. It kind of changed my view on where I wanted to go with the series and whatnot. And then I realized I really don't have the time to be working on a game like that because of school, right? I mean, I have a crazy schedule.
You're a busy man.
Yeah, so I was like, wow, okay. So, because the last two Honor and Vengeance games took about 7 to 8 months each, and there's just no way I could devote that amount of time with school going on and whatnot.
Right.
So I started to kind of wander around, I thought of some ideas for maybe doing a smaller type of project. But it was also kind of around that time that my view on video games kind of changed radically. I started to question a lot of like mainstream game design practices and stuff like that, and I tried to look deeper and into the games I enjoyed from the mainstream and whatnot, and see what worked and what didn't. And there was just kind of a whole period of me trying to like dissect game design and become a better game designer. And I wanted to find a project that I could develop in a short amount of time that I could really use to hone in my game design skills and try to improve. And this game, Sententia, which by the way, I think that's how you say it. It's a Latin word, and it means purpose, opinion, thoughts, feelings, stuff like that. I guess it's Sententia. I went to Wiki Dictionary, and that's how they pronounced it.
Okay.
So, yeah. But yeah, I developed this month in 3 months, 3 month time frame. I started last March, and that was 3 months of hardcore development. I'm still doing a little bit of tweaking and polish, trying to get it ready for the marketplace and whatnot. But pretty much the whole premise of the game is you're this little creature, and throughout the game you get older, and the whole theme of the game is growing up and the struggle to keep our imaginations alive and creative spirits alive throughout the process of getting older. And it was kind of a cool theme that I've always wanted to tackle somehow, either through like music or I never thought I would tackle it with a game. But see, that's what I mean. My view has changed because before, like when we last talked, I don't know, games were just, I don't know, I kind of question why, because, you know, I'm like a radical liberal guy all into feelings and emotions and whatnot, and I started to kind of question why a video game has never really significantly moved me like a good album or a good film has. So I kind of, there was like a big art game movement that happened from around 2007 to 2009, and I kind of dug into all those games, and I kind of looked and see kind of what went right, what went wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And I tried to learn from their experiments because, I don't know, like that, the biggest game that influenced me, there's probably 3 of them. Edmund McMillan's Ether, I think you had him on the program because I listened to
Yes, I did. Yep.
Yeah, that was a really good interview. Yeah, his game Ether was a big influence. And have you heard of Jason Rohrer's Gravitation at all?
I haven't, actually.
You haven't? Okay, well, he was big for this game called Passage back in, I think.
Okay, right.
Yeah, and I don't know, Passage was a little bit too out there for me. I thought Gravitation was like where he really hit his stride. Like that game had a lot of good stuff going on. So it was mainly those 2 games, and of course Braid, everyone's favorite game. So I kind of I dissected those games because I thought they had a lot of good things going on, storytelling wise. So I don't know, like this last year has been a lot of like analyzing game design and kind of rethinking my whole approach to games really. And so Sententia I designed from the ground up to tell a story through gameplay mechanics. So I've kind of, I've told people that it's an art game, and like there were some comments on the trailer and whatnot saying, "Oh, this isn't an art game. This is an action platformer with puzzles," which those were the mechanics that kind of came out that told the story that I wanted to tell. And
right.
So, I mean, I guess it is an action platformer. Like, I'm not going to go on this whole spree that, my game's art and needs to be worshipped and all that. But, like, I'd rather label it an art game rather than label it a platformer because to me, I don't really know what it is. It's just something, it's just an expression, I guess, of things that have happened recently in my life. And,
well, when you say art game, I said, it was usually, I think when somebody says art game, they go towards Braid or something like that. But what is your definition? Because it doesn't have to be the definition. Just what do you think when you were thinking art game, so we can see where you're heading with the title?
Well, I mean, I think it means a lot of different things to different people, but to me, it's just something that tries to communicate a deeper message than, how I look at the mainstream games is that all they are is just fun, and they want to like kind of just entertain you for a while and get your money, and then you kind of go back and live your life and make dinner and do all that. Like, there's no interaction afterwards. And to me, an art game is just something that, like when you're done playing it, you can still think about, and like there's themes in it that can relate to your own life. Just like a deeper message, than what a lot of games are kind of going for right now. That's what an art game is to me. I mean, I know it means a ton of different things to other people, but
right, yeah. What was the moment for you? Was there a particular game you played, or what was the moment where you said, it can do more than this? It doesn't. They don't have to. They're not all Shakespeare, but that doesn't mean you can't shoot for that. So what made you have the epiphany?
It was a mixture of those three games: Ether, Gravitation, and Braid. Yeah, like something. And I tried to analyze like what went right in those games, and what I found that worked, that made sense to me, was that they kind of told a story through in a very vague way, like through themes, and not like a direct narrative, but just by like showing pictures, and like the way you interact with things kind of had a meaning to it. Right. And whatnot. Like, it wasn't just straight dialogue, And I think that makes sense because games by nature are non-linear, so it's kind of hard to like force a narrative story on something that has interactivity, if that makes sense. And
I get what you're saying, yeah.
Yeah, and like when I look at the mainstream games, like all I see now is that they try to mimic the film industry, right? I mean, it's all about the cinematic, big cut scenes and all that.
Right.
And I'm not like dissing these games because, I bought Mass Effect 3 and I enjoyed it or whatever, and they're fun. I just think I think to get that deeper experience, we have to try and not be more like the film industry and try to find what really makes video games great, which is the interactivity. So I think we need to try and maybe explore with that a little more. I don't know. It's hard for me to talk about because it's such unpaved territory, right? I mean, no one really knows. Like all those art games, they didn't know what they're doing. I don't know what I'm doing now. Like it's just like a new field, right? So it's been fun.
So was there a moment in a mainstream game where you just thought, wow, because again, a couple of years ago, you were just, not going to say you were the typical game designer, but because obviously you weren't, but you kind of, you liked a certain style. So was there something else besides playing those games that brought you in a positive direction? Was there something from the negative side where you're just like, wow, this could have been so much more? I mean, I don't want you to, I'm not trying to get you to call somebody out, but at the same time, was there like a moment that way you were like, that, man, this just isn't doing it for me the way I thought it would?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard because I started to analyze like games I played as a child, like back in the 90s, and I analyzed like the entire, like where the industry started and the history of it. And I don't know, it's been hard for me to accept this, but I think the downfall of all this kind of happened in the 90s, like with the games I grew up with, right? I think that's kind of when things went downhill. And it's hard for me to accept that because I really love those games. Right. I played on the N64, but like you saw this like creative boom, like with all the 3D hardware. Like you saw like Super Mario 64, Gold, like all those great games. And then you saw the video game industry become like more profitable. And you saw like the business people come in, and I think like the 2000 was the peak year for video game profits. And like that, in my opinion, is when things just, I mean, all the games look the same now. They play the same. Like everyone uses like the same 3 engines, right? Like, and the whole personal aspect has been lost. And it's just interesting because like with this whole indie game movement, like things have become full circle because like when games started out, it was just a couple people working on them, and they had like really expressive things they wanted to say through the games because it was just like 2 people. But now that it's such a, it's like hundreds of people working on games and whatnot, it's hard to have that personal expression when it's so many people. Right. So I don't know. It's just, I've looked at everything, and like even, a couple of years ago, I would have said The Elder Scrolls Oblivion changed my life. I would have said, oh, that was just the greatest game ever because I spent like 350 hours playing it. Right? I look back now and I don't remember anything from that game except that Patrick Stewart had a voiceover role as the king. And like, that's great and all, like escapism is nice, But like, I just feel that if you're gonna waste people's time like that, and not waste, but if you're going to, have people play a game for that long, like they should maybe take something out of it that's real, like something real, like be moved by it or make them think about something, just something besides wasting their time. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's just how I feel about it. All the mainstream games, I kind of have qualms with now, but
okay,
they're still fun. Like those games are fun. It's just I try being independent. I feel like I have an obligation to try and do what they can't because they're bound by money and I'm not.
Right.
So that's just how I feel.
Okay. Are you concerned though that by going this route, I mean, clearly you're not looking necessarily to win over the mainstream audience, but are you concerned that it may limit you in that way? Because you do have to think about that. You do have to eat, you have to pay for college, stuff like that. So does that concern you that, well, this is where I want to head, but I don't know if I'm going to be starting the revolution or if I'm going to be kind of on my own out here? You know what I mean?
Well, money, yeah, I definitely know what you mean. I mean, money has been a big stress in my life for the last year because I feel, when I came down here to go to college, like I was so convinced that I couldn't make it as an independent game developer that I was going to have to get this, piece of paper that says I'm smart and then go work out in the industry.
Right.
Which deep down, that's never what I've ever wanted to do with my life. I was just convinced that that's the only way I could be stable financially. Mm-hmm. But then when Iron Vengeance 2 came out, I was like, well, I think I can do it. Like, it just kind of made me believe. And so there's been a whole load of stress on me for the last year because I feel like I need to be financially successful to keep doing this. And it's been a lot of me, I can't sit here and like stress about money because my game's going to suck. Like if I just sit here and think about money.
Right.
I need to think about the game and not. And you look at any like successful independent game developer, and they weren't just handed bajillions of dollars. They usually worked and lived in poverty for like a decade before they had that big game. Like Super Meat Boy is a perfect example of that.
Exactly.
So I don't know. It's not to the point now where I'm not really worried about it. I mean, I think money will come if I can work hard enough and do a good job. So I'm just trying to focus on my games. And to go back to your question, I don't think, because I strive to, like, I want to communicate with people and have my stuff be accessible. So like this game isn't like so far out there that I think no one will get it or anything like that. Because what I tried to do with this game with Sententia was I tried to find a balance between like this obscure art game thing and what people are already used to and would find acceptable. Because I want people, like, I'm really intrigued with like tricking people into trying new things. And I kind of feel like this game pulled it off. Like if there's one thing I can feel proud of with this game, it's that I kind of pulled off the mixture of those two scenes. But I mean, that's yet to be seen. I mean, we'll see what people think when it comes out. But I try to find a balance between that.
Well, let's get into the nitty gritty of the game itself. So tell us again. You said you start as a young creature, and you're growing and adapting, but still trying to maintain your identity and maintain your creativity.
Yeah. And
something here in the description that's got me really intrigued. It says defending your ideas throughout the game. So talk to me a little bit about that, about trying to put that in as a mechanic.
Or not.
I mean,
no, it's totally a mechanic. Like it might be hard to see it in the trailer. Like I had a hard time putting that trailer together because it was just it's different when you actually play the game. Like it makes more sense, but trying to convey it in a trailer I had trouble with. Mm-hmm. But if you look at it, when the creatures attack each other, they're actually fighting with words.
Yes, I've noticed that, and I noticed when they are defeated, they go off in a shower. I noticed when your character goes, it's a shower of words and question marks, which I thought I'd like to discuss it again in a minute. So go on.
Well, yeah. So I played into like everyone attacks with words, and like there's this mechanic where you like the longer you hold on to the attack button, the more powerful your words are, and like the whole little riddle I put in the game was the longer you think about your words, the more powerful they are. So I kind of played to that, like when you sit there and think about what you're going to say, then maybe you can get past the other guy, and like just a bunch of little subtle things like that add on to like the story I'm trying to say,
And so tell me about the questions. I guess that kind of fits into the idea that your character is growing and learning and doesn't know how how he fits in the scheme of things.
Yeah, the grand scheme of things. Yeah, absolutely. And like there's each time the person explodes or whatever, there's different words and whatnot that come out. And something I did keep is that both the enemies and the player like have question marks come out, because when I was designing the enemies and had placed them in the world, like I didn't want it to be where I wanted there to be kind of question, like when you saw an enemy just standing there, like, oh, is he going to attack me? Or is he just standing there, like, what is he doing? And like, there's enemies you can talk to, and you find that, they're kind of confused about life too, like you are. And like sometimes when you attack an enemy, question marks will come out of them too. So I did all that to try and say, well, maybe these enemies or whatever, these other kids are kind of like you. You just don't see it. They just look different and are doing different things. It's just a bunch of little subtle things like that. Hopefully people will grab onto and get,